Hey, what is going on, guys? I am here with a fresh video, and today I'm kind of wanting to talk about something that's kind of going on in the car community that I noticed. Some of my friends are kind of moving towards trucks and off-road vehicles. So basically what I'm wanting to do is talk about if you're wanting to get into off-roading, if you're wanting to get into overlanding, what that usually entails, and give you some of my advice on if that is something that you might like. It really depends on the person, right? If you're interested in going out exploring, checking out the National Forest Service roads, just getting out there traveling, right? Like if you want to travel, you don't have to have 35s. You don't have to have big suspension. You don't have to have all the the bells and whistles that like you typically see on off-road rig. I know mine is kind of a little bit more of an extreme case. If you aren't familiar with my 2019 Ford Ranger, we have an APG Automotive Performance Group wide body on it. We have bumpers, we have rock sliders, we have long travel suspension, we have 35s, we have CVT 10s, we have CVT awnings. But I will tell you, if there are alternatives, really good alternatives that I was considering for a while, as far as like tent stuff goes, if you do want to get into car camping, truck camping, or just like overlanding in general. And that's the one thing you need to learn first is when people say overlanding, it is basically car or truck camping. And the difference between what I would say off-roading, which is typically taking the hardest line, finding the most difficult way through and having fun with it, testing out your suspension, testing out your tires, almost like rock crawling, but not quite as extreme as rock crawling. Rock crawling it's kind of like on the extreme end of off-roading. So overlanding versus off-roading. Overlanding is more just about the adventure of getting there. Off-roading is about actually just having fun off-road and doing difficult stuff. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Now, if you're like me, I've had my 2015 Mustang GT since it came out in 2014. So this was the first year model for the S550 Mustang. I have owned it since the S550 came out, and it's been an absolute awesome car to own. It has 34,000 miles. The first year of its life, I drove it pretty much every day, drove it everywhere, and then it became my fun car. And I've been back and forth for a long time on if I did want to sell it or if I wanted to keep it. It has a Whipple Gen 3 blower. It's a brand new blower. I got it from somebody. We swapped over from the older Gen 2. We have a Gen 3 blower on it. Cobra Jet intake, ID 1000 injectors, JMS Fuel Max booster pump. We have a JLT catch can system for it. And we have a UPR crankcase breather, BC coilovers. I can go on and on. But overall, the car has pretty much stayed the same outside of the wheels, the hoods, the front lips, the spoilers. But we're kind of right now, we're at I guess an in-between. It's kind of not a completely stock look, but it's like OEM plus, right? It's like an OEM plus look to it right now. Power and trans is the same. We're running Vossen HF3s, I believe, or HF5s for the wheels. And we're running Nitto G2s, 305, 30, 20s in the back, and then I believe 285s up front. 35s, 20s, yeah. So overall, it's a very simple look, good power, good handling. It's got subframe braces, it's got a G-Trek brace up front. So overall, it's a very solid all-around car with probably a little bit too much power. Now, when it comes to the Ranger, we have got the APG Pro Runner wide body system with the APG upper control arms, lower control arms, tie rod. So now if you want to look here underneath, this tie rod is not stuck. This CV axle is not stuck. The lower control arm obviously is APGs. We're running right now, currently we're running Falcon suspension. The upper control arm is also not stock. There's the fully boxed in upper control arm as well. And then of course APG's bumpers. Now the cool thing is, you notice on the Ranger is that the CV angles, everything is fairly stock. That is because APG engineers actually engineered this truck to have still the stock angles, even with their wide body system, with their control arms, with their long travel setup. You're basically sitting at stock angles with the lift, with the new tie rods, everything. So they took their time. It wasn't just like, oh, hey, we're going to just create some control arms. We're not going to really do too many measurements. Here you go. Have fun with it. So you do get what you pay for, especially with the APG kit. We are running Milestar Patagonia 35s, which has been an excellent tire. I have no complaints against them. They are a very soft mud terrain, so you're going to expect to maybe get around 30,000 miles, 35,000 miles with them. They're not going to last forever, but the price is really good. We are running Schrockworks rock sliders. We are running an RCI tent rack, or RCI bed rack, right? And then a CVT Mount Shasta Summit tent and 79-inch CVT awning, the Princey rack, and I am running a gun case up top for recovery gear storage, small things. Now, like I said in the beginning of this video, this is really overkill for what you would need for overlanding. However, since we have really kind of put a pause on the Mustang stuff, I wanted to build a really nice truck. And before we did the APG wide body, I had planned on doing bumpers, flares, stuff like that. But now you see how everything turned out, and it rides great. It rides awesome. It feels absolutely amazing on the road. If you haven't already, check out the longer video with David Patterson, that dude in blue. We did a sit down review of the truck together to talk about everything that's on the truck itself. So enough about the builds. What you're here for is basically, you know, is this something that you want to do? Is this something you want to get into? Now, what we're not talking about is the trucks that are like the F-250s, the F-150s, any type of large truck on like a 24x12 with really thin tires, big wheels, maybe a Cali Lane, maybe the Carolina Squat. Like, that's totally not in the realm of this video. If that's what you like, you're definitely on the wrong video. I'm sure there's channels for that. That is definitely not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting into an off-road rig that you can go take off-road reliably and have a lot of fun with it. Maybe do some light camping. It's up to you. You know, you might find, and that's another thing. You might find that off-roading is not your thing, right? There is obviously risk involved with off-roading, just like there's risk with driving fast in a car on the street. Now, if you currently have a vehicle like this, right, whether it be like a 350Z, 370Z, and you're just kind of tired of the car community and you want to get into something else, the off-road community is actually really awesome. Obviously, there's crappy people in everything, but in general, there's less crappy people in the off-road scene. Everybody is typically wanting to help each other out. Everybody's super helpful. And that's just because of the age, right? When these Mustangs first came out, the entry age to get one of these was pretty high. You had to be like in your mid-late 20s. You had to have some pretty good money, because when these first came out, like a GT Performance Pack was like $45,000. The buy-in was pretty high. You can get one of these now for like mid-20s. So mid-20s, your buyer, your typical customer is going to be a lot younger. And with them being a lot younger, you know, it's just they're not going to be as mature. And the types of folks they're going to hang out with are not going to be mature. And with, you know, even at stock levels, it's a decent amount of power to start with. So yeah, that's typically the crowds you're going to find hanging out with either the Z community or now the Mustang community. that's typically what you're going to find. So now the thing is, when you start looking at moving from this to an off-roader, you're looking at Rangers, Colorados, Tacomas, Land Cruisers, Lexus GXs. You're looking at Nissan Frontiers. You're looking at maybe old Rangers. There's a wide variety of 4x4s that are out there that can get you where you most want to go with a good suspension, with a good tire. The biggest thing is getting good tires. So if you're wanting a change of pace, I think the off-road community is a really good option. The only downside is to an off-roader is when you're on the road. It's not as fun as driving something like this when you have, you know, over 750 wheel horsepower, all that torque. You have just, you know, lots of awesome V8 noises, and you can get a V8 off-roader, but, you know, you have sway bars, you have chassis, you know, modifications where everything is nice and stiff, and, you know, it's just really dialed in on the road, and it's really nimble. Well, the off-road world, sway bars. You can have sway bars, but the more flex you have in your suspension, the more nimble off-road it is. You know, that's what you want, which doesn't really translate to really great on-road characteristics. Just like most Jeeps, you know, they have sway bar disconnects so that you can disconnect your sway bars when you're off-road, but then reconnect them when you're on-road again. So you have a little bit more handling. So that's kind of what it, you know, they're almost like polar opposites. If you're fine with driving slower, right? Like you have a mud terrain, which they're speed rated, I think, till only like 115 miles an hour. These are Z-rated tires. You know, you get what I'm saying. It's a totally different world. And if you're okay with not having to go fast everywhere, you know, if you're okay with not having a really tight, like, on-road suspension, or having really, really good turning characteristics and stuff like that, you know, an off-road option is really good for you. So, with that being said, some of the downsides to the off-road stuff, right? You are really limited to public National Forest Service roads. You can get into a bit of trouble if you go on private property, and a lot of times it's usually marked in a weird way where you might not know that it's private property. You might get stuck and you're going to get fined. So there are ways to get in trouble off-roading. It also depends on your region, right? If you're living in somewhere like Omaha, there's not a ton of off-roading places that you can go. If you live in Florida, you know, you're kind of limited to like Everglades stuff or whatever, or off-road parks and maybe some beaches, but it's not going to be like Idaho or Oregon or California. It really depends on where you live. Now, in the state of Georgia, we have Tennessee, we have North Carolina, we have North Georgia, we have Alabama, and then obviously you have Arkansas nearby, and you got some other places. So you have some options if you want to go overland in certain places. You have the option to go to different places to explore. Now, I've gone to Colorado and back, and I've gone to Los Angeles and back, and we've camped out in New Mexico, and it was an epic, awesome time. So traveling, you're not as worried about hitting stuff on the road as you are with this. Obviously, look how low my Mustang is to the ground. You don't really have a ton of leeway on hitting stuff on the road without causing damage. So you have to be very like conscious of where you're driving, the road up ahead. Is there any debris on the road? Because if you do hit it with one of these, you're gonna have a really bad day. Opposite of that, you have a ton of ground clearance. You've got, you know, nice thick tires. You're not going to really bend your wheels on anything. You really can go almost anywhere with one of these things, and if you build it like this, you really can go almost anywhere. And that is a huge plus after so many years of just driving lowered vehicles with low profile tires. You just have it's almost like exhausting to, no pun intended, it's exhausting driving to places, worrying about where you're gonna go. You know, if you hit a pothole, if you bend a wheel, it's such a pain to constantly worry about and think about. Now, you know, it is a trade-off, right? Like, I do enjoy driving my Mustang for many reasons over the Ranger, but it's kind of a trade-off. If I'm going on a road trip, you bet I'm probably going to want to take that as opposed to this, because with this I can load up tools, I can load up spare stuff. Like, I can put all my luggage in there. I can just do so much more with an off-road rig than I can with like a more of a sports car type deal, you know, like a Z or a Mustang or whatever it is that you might want to modify. Obviously, there's, you know, there's some exceptions to every rule. Like, you could have a Forester, you could have a Subaru wagon, you can have, you know, just cross tracks, and there's the soft landing, like it's kind of like the soft roaders, like the off-roaders that, you know, have like the cross tracks or the ridge lines, or, you know, not as quite hardcore as like a, you know, a boxed in frame 4x4. It's just, there's different types, right? You have different options. And I know I'm kind of probably rambling about this, and we're already at almost 17 minutes on this video. So I'm going to try to cut this a little short, but you have so many options when it comes to off-road vehicles. I think I might continue this talk in other ways, but I just wanted to get something out there that if you guys are looking into off-roading, these are the pros and cons to having both. And a lot of people were like, well, am I going to sell the Mustang? I don't think I'm going to for a while. I'm going to continue working on this one. It has been my baby since 2014, and which is almost 6 years old. It only has 34,000 miles. Obviously, money talks. If I ever did get a crazy offer, I would probably sell it. But as of right now, I'm keeping it. I'm going to continue working on it. Obviously, some parts were removed for certain reasons, you know, like my engagement and stuff. I did use the funds for that. So yeah, I am keeping it. I'm going to continue modding it in the meantime, but also I'm enjoying the heck out of the Ranger. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you don't like certain things that I said, definitely drop a constructive comment below and let me know what you think. Or if you think I missed anything, and I probably did, based on you know, the benefits of an off-road vehicle versus an on-road vehicle, leave a comment as well, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.